In this episode, we're going to look at U.S. domestic and foreign policy concepts. Now, much of domestic and foreign policy concepts are regulated to Congress, and the U.S. Constitution outlines in Article 1, Section 8, what exactly of those policies is going to be controlled by Congress. Several of them are both domestic and foreign. Those that don't fall to Congress are usually in the realm of the executive branch and are powers that the president possesses. So let's take a look at the specific powers that Congress has over policy. When it comes to domestic policy, really Congress's main power has to do with money. They have the power to tax. They control the purse strings. They also have the power to commit a common defense. So that means that they're in charge of the military. Their biggest power when it comes to foreign policy, of course, is to declare war. The Congress has the power to raise and support an army, but they also have the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations. That too is foreign policy. Back to domestic policy, they're the ones that establish how to become a citizen through the role of naturalization. Let's take a look at domestic policy. These are policies that affect Americans here at home. They have three basic categories: social welfare, healthcare, and education. So some examples. When it comes to social welfare, the easiest one to think of is Social Security. I'm sure your grandparents are well aware of Social Security. It's the payment that they receive for retirement when you become elderly. And again, healthcare is tied to the elderly as well. A prime example is Medicare. This is medical coverage for the elderly that's provided through Social Security and through the government. Lastly, let's take a look at education. Federal policy, such as No Child Left Behind, puts in education standards and accountability for teachers. What are we actually teaching our students? Foreign policy is how we deal with other nations. And something that to remember about foreign policy is this: we try to have politics end at the water's edge. And what that means is we try to keep political squabbles between Democrats and Republicans out of foreign policy. We try to have like a united front when we're dealing with other countries. It makes us look weak if we're fighting amongst ourselves when we're trying to fight a war against somebody else. Now, like domestic policy, there are three main categories of foreign policy and how we deal with other nations. That's diplomacy, basically acting friendly, trying to get along. Alliances, building friendships and relationships. And treaties, basically like a law that's signed between two countries. So examples of these, we have diplomacy. That would be the Marshall Plan. This took over after the World War II, and it was our plan to help Europe recover and rebuild. And that lasted from 1948 to 1951. An example of an alliance is NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This was an alliance that was established by a treaty after World War II that basically said that we were going to be allies with most of Western Europe and defend one another against the Soviet Union, what today is Russia. And lastly, an example of a treaty is SALT, the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. There's actually several versions of SALT, and basically what they did was it was a treaty between us and the Soviet Union, what today is Russia, and it limited how many nuclear weapons each side was going to build. Now, when it comes to domestic and foreign policy, they influence each other. An example of this: if there is a threat from a foreign enemy, then there's a really good likelihood that Congress will increase military spending. So our relationship with the enemy is foreign policy, but of course that money and what we spend here in America is domestic policy. Another example of this is in the 1990s, military spending declined after the fall of communism. The Soviet Union fell apart, became a number of different little countries, and as a result, the spending we had for the military declined. At the same time, foreign policy changed as well for us in the US. We had all these new little nations, and we were kind of feeling out, should we become allies with them? What kind of diplomacy should we establish with these new nations that are trying to be democracies after the fall of communism in the Soviet Union? And of course, that fall was symbolized with the Berlin Wall coming down in 1990. Okay, that's it for this time.